It took just one day after I said this offense was dead and buried to have the best game of the season, scoring a season high 15 runs. And that might not have even been the most encouraging part of last night's obliteration of the A's. Talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 12 seasons, including all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, you guessed it, we're talking about this offense being good. The first time I think I might have said that in this whole season. We're talking about Jacob deGrom being fixed. And if this is finally the start of this team playing the way they should have been playing all season long. But before we get into all that, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Now, yesterday, I think that was the meanest that I've ever been to this team in my, well, no, that's a lie. After the Joey Gallo trade in the back half of 2021, where I was watching the most miserable, depressing Rangers baseball I have ever watched, and boy howdy, let me tell you, I've seen some miserable, depressing Rangers baseball. I think that yesterday's show was about the meanest that I've been to this team because I was disappointed. I was frustrated because this team should have been hitting all along. It didn't make sense, and it was incredibly frustrating because the pitching staff this year has been light years better than expected. And yes, the team still did have a winning record. Maybe it was a bit melodramatic for me to do that at 15 and 14. Still just barely had a winning record after the Monday loss. But I thought, hey, this offense doesn't make sense. And I was really tired about basically, all of last year's shows and all of this year's shows so far have been like, this offense should be better, but they're not. And I don't know what to make of that. And then they just kept on doing the same thing. But on yesterday's show, I said, maybe this offense just sucks. Maybe this offense is just bad. Maybe it's broken beyond repair. In the first segment, I literally said, every hit feels like an accident and every run feels like a miracle. Well, this felt like the miracle of miracles, scoring 15 runs, nearly doubling their previous season high, which did also come against these Athletics. They also had Corey Seager in the lineup then, in a lineup shakeup. They had in tonight's game, Kyle Higashioka, 3-hole hitter, Wyatt Langford leading off for the first time in his big league career. That looked nice. That worked out well. Everything that this team did, nearly everything that this team did. We'll talk about Dane Dunning at the end of this show because we're talking about the good stuff first. Nearly everything this team did looked like the offense that we were supposed to see. Now, for me, the biggest thing that was wrong with this offense was the swing decisions, especially during this skid where after that 8-run outburst where Corey Seager left the game with a hamstring issue against these Athletics in West Sacramento, Yolo County to be specifically, last Monday, you thought, okay, maybe this offense is going to be fixed. Maybe they're going to just start doing things better. And then they averaged 2 runs per game in a 6-game stretch, scoring 3 or fewer runs every single time. And heck, it was 2 or fewer runs every time outside of one. They averaged 2 runs a game because one game they lost 4-3. That was the only time they scored those 3 runs. Every other game it was 2 runs or 1 run. And granted, they were able to squeak out a 2-0 victory against San Francisco on Friday night, but losing 3 straight 1-run losses where the offense just couldn't do anything and the pitching staff was mostly brilliant was incredibly frustrating. But everything that this team hadn't done all season long, putting together quality at bats, working counts specifically. I said in yesterday's show, like, hey, sometime in the next 10 games, I want this Rangers offense to get the starting pitcher out before the 5th inning. Well, mission accomplished. And you do that by working a full count to each of the first 5 hitters that that Jacob Lopez faced in this one. He got out after 2 2/3 innings. It took one whole game. The Rangers worked 10% of their excuse me, I believe it was nearly 12% of their no, yeah, nearly 12% of their walks on the entire season last night with 8. That was from Sean Bass of the Ticket. Shout out Sean Bass and the Ticket tweeting that out last night. Walks matter. This team did not walk barely at all so far this season because, well, some of their best hitters are not necessarily the most passive. Jake Berger, not a guy who walks a whole lot. Corey Seager will work an average-ish, sometimes less than average share walks. He's pretty aggressive. Same with Marcus Semien, not necessarily a big walk guy. Wyatt Langford will work more than his fair share of walks, but the rest of this offense, Adolis Garcia, not necessarily going to work a whole lot of walks. Josh Young, so far in his big league career, hasn't worked necessarily a whole lot of walks. And so many walks in this one and such a high pitch count. After the first inning, you thought, okay, well, maybe this is the same thing all over again. The Rangers with the bases loaded. They just can't do anything with the bases loaded. And they can't do anything with 2 outs. And in this game, and they also can't do anything while behind in counts. It felt like they were being too passive on bad pitches, mistake pitches that were being thrown down the plate and swinging at pitches outside the zone. And they weren't working counts. They weren't fouling off balls. And this game, they did all of that. And not only that, but having a 2-out rally in the third inning, adding on another run in that third inning, not doing anything until there were 2 outs. That was encouraging. That bit of 2-strike hitting from Jake Berger going down 0-2 and then taking a slider away from him and poking it into right field for an RBI single. That was the kind of thing that this Rangers offense didn't do. And you'll notice they did score 15 runs, they had 18 hits, 9, count them, 9 walks. Maybe it was more than 12%. Maybe Sean Bass didn't do that math correctly. Or maybe I think that was actually during the game. They worked one more after that. But this team was 10 for 22 with runners in scoring position, and they left 10 on base. It could have been worse. It could have been worse for this A's pitching staff that is mediocre. This is a mediocre pitching staff, and this is an offense that should be taking advantage of a mediocre pitching staff. And they did. They worked counts. They trusted the next guy up in the lineup to do his job if they couldn't. They were not just up there with no plan of attack. I mean, just time and time again, these Rangers hitters all the way up and down this lineup. Everybody who started in this game ended up with a hit. Even Kyle Higashioka. It took 3-hole hitter Kyle Higashioka until that 8th inning where he poured on the final 3 runs in this 15-2 drubbing at this point, with another bases clearing double, 3 of them on the night for the Rangers, which routine. I feel like they've had countless opportunities in the last week or so. I mean, they've had base runners, but they've had so many different opportunities with the bases loaded and 2 outs where they've done just absolutely nothing with it the last couple of weeks. So actually, really, the whole season. And this time, they cleared the bases 3 times. They did twice in 1 inning in that 8 run inning. The 8 run inning in the 6th with Jacob deGrom cruising. We'll talk about that in the second segment. And Jacob deGrom looking like the version of Jacob deGrom that the Rangers paid a whole bunch of money for, that fills me with absolute glee every time I see him. That 8 run inning, that was their season high in runs. They had not scored more than 8 runs in the game. They only did that once, and that was just last Monday. Before that, it was 6 runs was their season high in a game. And this offense that made it so good in 2023 was that they'd have routinely huge innings like this where they just pile on and on and on. And it felt like the opposing pitchers were suffocating. They couldn't get a breath. They couldn't take a pitch off because everybody in this lineup was stepping up. Not everybody was hot at the same time at really any point last year, but enough guys were hot. Enough guys were doing their job. And you look at the bottom of the lineup in this one. Heck, a 3 RBI day for Adolis Garcia. He reached base, 3 times. He had a walk, a rare thing for Adolis Garcia. 2 hits, including a 3-run double that cleared the bases. I thought he got all of it, and that was going to be a grand slam. It wasn't. A great bit of hitting from Jake Berger, who reached base 4 times, and Leody Taveras, who also reached base 4 times. He had 3 hits against a lefty, something Leody Taveras has not done. And, after Adolis's a little bit boneheaded base running mistake in that second inning, I think it was the first inning, where Leo Tavares, no, it was the second inning because Leo Tavares reached base. It would have been bases loaded with no outs, and Adolis hesitated for just a second, trying to come around third. If he hadn't hesitated on that bunt throw that pulled the first baseman off the bag, maybe Adolis would have scored. I don't know. I would have rather him just kind of sat there and let Wyatt Langford, the one hitter who was hot at this point, the one hitter who's been consistently fantastic all season long, let him get a chance with the bases loaded and no outs. But they did it without a home run, without going for that 10-run homer. The closest they got to a homer, they dropped 15 runs without a single homer. And the closest they got was the first batter of the game in Wyatt Langford, where he was about maybe a foot, maybe 6 inches away from hitting the foul pole with a leadoff homer. But instead, he works a walk. The Rangers work 3 walks, and they do everything that they haven't done, hitting with 2 strikes, hitting with 2 outs, starting rallies, continuing rallies, everything that they had not done all season long that you thought eventually they would do. They did it all in this one game. And while the offense breaking out was long overdue, incredibly great sign, incredibly encouraging. That was not the most encouraging thing for me in this start. It was the absolute unbridled dominance of Jacob deGrom, looking like, once again, the best pitcher on earth. We'll tell you exactly how he dominated, why I think this is the start of Jacob deGrom looking like the best version of himself yet again for the Texas Rangers. All that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and you can stay on the same page without all that stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Now, shout out to the everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I'll be back, and who knows, maybe talking about a 16-run outburst. But after every single game, you can check out Jeff Biggs of the Locked On Rangers postcast doing fantastic work there after every single game. He's got you covered. I've got weekends off. Jeff Biggs is covering those games right as they happen. Live shows, doing a great job. Very happy to have Jeff Biggs as a part of this team. You know who else I'm happy to have as a part of my team? Well, that's Jacob freaking deGrom. Man, from the first start, from every one of those 6 starts that he made in 2023, the Rangers won all 6 of those games in 2023. And heck, that was the last time that Jacob deGrom got a big league win, was in 2023 before Tommy John surgery number 2. And when he was there, he was looking like he wasn't looking like he was the best pitcher on earth when he's on the mound. Well, he's been on the mound so far this season, and he's been just fine. Unfortunately, just fine, which, for most pitchers, that's fine. Being fine is fine, obviously. Nothing groundbreaking there, but he didn't look dominant. He looked mortal at times. He'd had a couple of good starts in a row. I mean, against the Dodgers, outside of that home run to Tommy Edman, he looked really darn good. 7 innings there, just the 1 run, just 1 walk, 3 hits, 7 strikeouts. And then last game against the Athletics, he only allowed a couple of runs, and those only scored because Wyatt Langford lost a ball in the Little League Stadium lights, and that ended up being responsible for those 2 runs scoring. Otherwise, I don't think that Jacob deGrom would have allowed a single earned run. And in this one, he didn't walk anybody in that one. That's more like the Jacob deGrom that we know. This was the Jacob deGrom start. This was everything that we have grown to know and love about Jacob deGrom. This is the reason why he's so darn special and why it was so confusing what he was doing earlier on in the season. For me, it comes down to his four-seam fastball. Now, he had taken that down just a couple of ticks. Instead of averaging it around 99 or 100 miles an hour, it's been it's been down a little bit this year on purpose. He's averaging 96.7 miles per hour. Last year, he was up to 97.3, and the year before that, he was averaging nearly 99. Basically, he's down 2 miles an hour on purpose so that for the long-term health of his arm, he can stay on the mound. He can keep making those starts. Heck, this is his 7th start of the season. We were projecting somewhere around 20 to 25 starts in the regular season. He's already made 7. He hasn't missed a single start. This came 5 days after his last start, and he's been about that pace, 6 days per start. This was more like normal rest in this one, and he had his best start of the season, and he was incredible. I mean, he was absolutely sensational. He was commanding the fastball, and that four-seam fastball, that has been the key for him. It has been one of the best pitchers in baseball. And this year, even though it's down a few ticks, you look at the extra peripheral numbers around it. You look at the spin rate, the extension, the release point, and things like that. All of it looked similar to when he was at his best, but the results weren't the same. Hitters were seeing it. They were making contact with it. They were not just making contact, they were making loud, hard contact with it. They were seeing it well, which was not something that you could ever say about Jacob deGrom and his fastball. He dominated with that fastball in the low or the mid 90s. He even dominated with it in the low 90s at points. But when he was at his best, when he won back-to-back Cy Youngs in 2018 and 2019, he was sitting 95, 96 as opposed to 98, 99. Now, he was absolutely untouchable, unbelievable in 2021, where he was averaging, about 100 miles an hour with that fastball, but he couldn't stay healthy. And so he thought, okay, what if I dial it back a little bit and rein in that command? But the swing and miss rate on that four-seam fastball before this start was the 7th worst in all of baseball among starters. 7th worst in all of baseball, just 18.3% whiff rate on that four-seam fastball. That's not Jacob deGrom. The only players worse than him, Roki Sasaki, 8.9%. Roki's taken some ticks off of his fastball, and he's also worked on keeping himself healthier, not having any arm issues like he had in the last couple of seasons. He thinks that is, been a bit of a reason for the decline. Then you have Antonio Santazella of the Rockies, not necessarily that great a pitcher. Bowden Francis at 12.8%. That was, more than 5% better than Jacob deGrom. And Bowden Francis is averaging 88, 89, 90 as a right-hander with his four-seam fastball, and he's getting a lower. Actually, no, that's worse. Never mind. Sorry, scrap that. But basically, all of the numbers around it didn't make sense. But Jacob deGrom had talked about his mechanics. About that was another one of the things that made Jacob deGrom great. Is that not only could he place the fastball exactly where he wanted, not only was the raw stuff incredible, but the command of it had been, when he's at his best, incredible. And it really hadn't been that quite yet this year. You really hadn't seen him, be untouchable. And there's a difference between control and command. It's easy to get those two confused, but the way that I sort it out is control. Think of control as you're driving your car in the rain. You have control over your car if you're not going to drive into a ditch. It's not like you have, everything going, but you're doing enough. And with pitchers, control is just throwing strikes. It's just staying in the zone, not necessarily quality strikes. It's just making sure you aren't walking the entire world. Now, command is throwing quality strikes. It's throwing your strikes exactly where you want. Think of an F1 driver. They have more than just control of their car. They have exact, precise command. It does exactly what they want for the most part every single time, if they're one of the best drivers and they have good cars. But Jacob deGrom had the best stuff and the best command of it. And so far this season, he hadn't had that. And in this one, he did. It was not only fantastic, it's 6 innings, 4 hits, no walks, 7 strikeouts, but he also did it on just 65 pitches. And granted, the reason he was pulled after 65 pitches was because this offense just opened up a can of whoop. You know what? I'm not allowed to swear on this podcast anymore. They dropped an 8 spot in the bottom of that 6th inning, and Jacob deGrom was sitting for a while. You thought, okay, this is the best of both worlds. You get an elite Jacob deGrom start. He doesn't have to throw that many pitches. He is economical. He gets that first win since 2023, lowers the season ERA below 3 at 2.73. And I think from this point on, we will start to see more of the Jacob deGrom of old. This was something that he fixed with his command, with his control. He said that he was flying open a bit too much at the end. So hitters were seeing his fastball more. They were getting a better look at it. He wasn't able to get it down in the zone. He wasn't able to get it exactly where he wanted to as frequently. And this start, he did. I mean, he retired 11 in a row. And for me, the plate appearance that most showed me, oh, he's back. He is very much back to his old self, was the top of the fourth inning. It was the last hitter of the inning. He was in the middle of 11 straight hitters retired. And this was against Shea Langford. The Rangers were up 3-0 at this point. This game was still very much in the balance. And Jacob deGrom, when he's at his best, he can live with that fastball in the zone. He can get swings and misses in the zone. That's what the best fastballs do. You could throw it right down the middle, and hitters, even if they know it's coming, they don't see it well and they can't do anything with it. So pitch one to Shea Langford, right down the middle, called strike, 97-mile-an-hour fastball. Okay. All right. I got to gear up for the fastball, Shea Langford is thinking. Pitch number two, four-seam fastball, about belt high, but away towards the edge of the zone. Foul tipped in the glove. It was at 98 miles an hour. Shea Langford thinks, okay, oh boy, I better lock in here. He's probably going to throw you something other than a fastball. Nope. Pitch number three, 98-mile-an-hour four-seam fastball, right down the middle, swing and miss. Good morning, good afternoon, good freaking night to Shea Langford, who has absolutely murdered the Rangers at home. The Keller native and Baylor Bear has absolutely destroyed the Rangers at home. He threw him 3 straight fastballs, the second time that he had seen him, and he couldn't do a darn thing with any of them. He looked helpless. This is a very good major league hitter who was made to look like a small child swinging a fungo bat. That's what Jacob deGrom does to the best big league hitters when he's at his best. That's what he was doing in this one. That is exactly what the Texas Rangers need from him. And that's why I keep freaking out every time that he's on the mound. That's why I make those stupid Photoshops every single time he's on the mound. And after the last couple of starts where he hadn't been, or the first 6 starts of the year, he hadn't been amazing. I was like, do I really want to do these dumb Photoshops every single day? I put a lot of time into the Jacob DeGrape, 27 different deGrom heads on a grape on the vine. I thought, is it really something worth celebrating? I mean, they've been pretty good the last couple of starts, but like, it wasn't must-see TV. It wasn't absolutely magical, scintillating. I wasn't sitting in my chair, kicking my feet and giggling like a giddy school child every time that Jacob deGrom threw a pitch by somebody. It hadn't happened yet so far this season. This was that. This was that feeling of thinking, you idiots, let this guy go. The Mets let this guy go. Everybody else had a chance to sign this guy, and I don't care about the injuries. The Rangers won a ring with Jacob deGrom. The contract is already a win. And if they keep getting starts like this and get another ring, and this time Jacob deGrom being an active participant in that October run, I'm going to absolutely giggle and kick my feet watching every single second of Jacob deGrom being fixed and being not the best pitcher on earth when healthy, but just the best dang pitcher on earth. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit more about this offense. Is this sustainable? Is this a start of something new? And even though this pitching staff has been amazing, it's been hurt. When are those guys coming back? We'll talk about all that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios are one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better-for-you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk on a road trip or just need a quick protein boost, they are always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Yesterday I was bouncing about town. I was heading to the ballpark. I went to go see the Rough Riders game yesterday, and I needed a snack. And no shells variety, so good, so easy. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Shout out to the Everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On Friday's show, I'll be back bright and early talking about the end of this Rangers series. I believe that is Tyler Malley's next start of the season, we will see him for the first time against the A's. Hopefully he looks just as incredible as always. Hopefully talking about winning a reverse sweep for these Texas Rangers. But Jacob deGrom looking finally fixed. And is this the start of something new for the Texas Rangers? Well, I sure hope so. I mean, eventually, mathematically, there are too many good hitters on this team. I've said this on basically every episode, that this team is not just a bunch of guys who randomly showed up in the big leagues and let's find out if they're good enough. No, these are guys with a track record of being exceptional, good to exceptional big league hitters. And they had been, for the most part, terrible. I mean, they had not been hitting well as a team. And whatever they did in the hitters meeting yesterday, whatever was going on there, do it again. It's going to be a little bit tougher of an assignment going against Luis Severino, the best pitcher on this A's, the best starting pitcher on this A's staff so far this season. Mason Miller is not starting, but he has been really darn good. I implore this Rangers offense, don't let Luis Severino get a quality start. And also, do better than the White Sox did against him. Against the White Sox, he went 6 innings and 3 runs, 2 walks, 6 hits. Do better than that. Do better than the White Sox offense. That every single day you should be doing better than the White Sox offense, no matter who you are, unless you're the Rockies or the Marlins offense. But honestly, every single day, just do better. I think just an offensive outburst like this, everyone getting in on the lineup, everybody reaching base, and Leote especially reaching base 4 times, that's got to be a big, big boost for his confidence in this one. And you know what else would be a big boost for this Rangers team confidence? I mean, hold on. There was a point that I meant to make that was about to be a brilliant lead-in, if not for my ADHD. Ugh, so close. But the Rangers offense, to give you a perspective of how much that one game impacted their team offense, before yesterday's game, the Rangers had an OPS plus as a team of 89, which means they were 11% worse than league average. 89, where 100 is league average. After one game, it has jumped up 5 points. That was the 30th game of the season, and it jumped up 5% with just one game. The Rangers' expected win-loss record was, several games below what it had been because, they hadn't really won a blowout game. This was the first blowout win of the season for the Rangers. I mean, the closest they had gotten was a couple of four-run wins. I mean, they had a 4-run win against the White Sox, 6-2. They had a 4-0 win against the Angels a couple weeks ago. But those are the only 2 wins of more than 3 runs before last night. And this Rangers offense, I think just having a day like that, remembering, okay, yeah, we actually are a very good offense. We are a good team. We can just do better. I think that can kind of, permeate throughout the team, throughout the fan base. I mean, I was in Frisco yesterday because after recording yesterday's show, I was like, I need something good to talk about. And the Rough Riders played a noon game. I went out there and saw some good things from Sebastian Walcott. Had an 0-for-4 day, but it looked like the plate discipline was really, really good. The swing decisions were really, really good. Alejandro Ozuna had a fantastic day. His second home run of the season and a triple. That guy is going to be in AAA before long, and he might be a part of this big league roster by the end of the season. That is a guy who managers love, and I think might just be an everyday starter in the big leagues. I'm not quite sure. Need to see him a few more times to figure that out. But I saw Chris Young there leaving the game as I was leaving the game. I almost rolled down my window and said, "Hey, Chris Young, tell the offense to hit good." I didn't do that, but if I did, then I absolutely would have taken credit for that 15-run outburst. But despite the Rangers offense not hitting for the full season like it had, the pitching staff has been incredible. I mean, this team has an ERA plus of 123, which means the pitchers have been 23% better than league average. The pitching had been incredible, and the offense, all you had to do was be average, and this team would be incredible. I mean, they still have a winning record, despite the offense, for the most part, not doing things. And this pitching staff has already been great, with 3 starting pitchers on the IL, and it's only getting better. I mean, John Gray underwent an X-ray yesterday, and if he's cleared, then he will start a throwing program. Cody Bradford threw from 90 feet. He got up to 90 miles an hour. He could throw off of mound in 3 weeks. That is a great, great sign. And Kumar Rocker was also throwing yesterday. Josh Spores is looking much, much better. He has been throwing. He got all the way up to 83 miles an hour, and he continues to build back up. He'll throw a bullpen in a couple of weeks, and it could be a really good sign of figuring out, exactly where he is. It seems like his timeline for return is August 1st in a worst case scenario. So that's nice to see after a couple of shoulder surgeries. Getting Josh Boyes and having him to this bullpen would be a great sign. And then Kamar Rucker, who is on the IL with a shoulder impingement, he threw on the field pregame and he was placed on the 15-day IL on Thursday. He is eligible to return on May 8th. Hopefully, that is when Kamar Rucker comes back, and we could see if Rucker maybe takes a little bit of a longer return to just throw in the minor leagues a little bit, get more comfort with that curveball, with that sinker, with the changeup, with the pitches that aren't the slider or the four seam fastball, to just kind of figure things out just a little bit. While Patrick Corbin has been really darn good, and this Rangers rotation as is could just stay as is. And to think they're doing this without John Gray, without Cody Bradford, without any of these guys who were on the shelf, that is a great sign for this Texas team. And without Dane Dunning, who had been a big part of this Rangers team for the last couple of years. It was a really frustrating way to start his first game coming in. He was called back up after a couple of mechanical changes that the Rangers saw in his mechanics. He looked better in his last couple of AAA starts. The results haven't been necessarily great, but the Rangers saw something. They thought, okay, let's send Caleb Bosley back down. I almost mispronounced his name again because I was reading it and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that's how Caleb Bosley's name is pronounced. But it was really frustrating to come into a game up where you're up 12-0 and walk the leadoff batter. That incredibly frustrating. And then allowing a home run to, of course, Shane Langford, who hit his 11th home run against the Rangers. This is just, I believe, his third big league season. He's barely played over 2 seasons of big league baseball. He's already got 11 career home runs against the Rangers, but he buckled down after that, getting 3 strikeouts and 3 innings of work. And yes, he did get a save. If you pitch the final 3 innings of any game in a win, no matter what the score, you get credited with the save. It's one of those weird save rules. So yeah, it's very weird to see someone get a save in a game where the Rangers won 15-2. But that's the only way to do it. Giving these high leverage guys a day off, giving a win where the Rangers didn't have to even warm up any other leverage guys. That is a hugely great sign. Everything about this game was an incredibly great sign. Getting Jacob deGrom back, not taxing him too much, giving him a lead to work with, and then expanding on it. Not just taking the 4-run lead is good enough. They've done that all season long where they haven't been able to pour on late. They did that. They poured on late with relief pitchers. On other relief pitchers. They did it against the second guy out of the bullpen, the third guy out of the bullpen. Heck, they poured on when there was a position player on the mound and dropped another 3 runs in that 8th inning when they were already up 12-2 at that point. That is a great sign. That is a sign of a good offense. That is a sign of a team that finally can let that weight off their shoulders. Remember, oh yeah, we're a bunch of good hitters. Let's just hit the ball good. Hopefully they can do that tomorrow and the next day and the next day. But even if not, at least for the first time this year, we're starting to see it. And even if they don't, you still got Jacob freaking deGrom on the hill. And that is a great sign for this Texas Rangers squad. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.